you said what it takes to scale. Scale comes in ebbs and flows. There will be slow times and there will be times to grow. What I did was we scaled our real estate portfolio so fast that when everything became chaotic. It was like from 20 units to, over 160 units in like 18 months. And it just became chaotic with like documents and investors and taxes and insurance and mortgages and bank
emails
accounts,
coming in and
corporations, lawyers. Like, holy crap, how do you like even start to get this organized?
Right.
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Gotta go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
hoping that
so
you dropped
very
in.
nice.
I'll hold your hands or just
My
like
mother will start
ice.
to worry.
Beautiful, what's your
My
hurry?
father will be pacing the floor.
Listen to the fireplace roar.
So really better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't hurry.
Just have a drink more.
I'll put some records on
The
while I
neighbors might
pour.
think, "See
Baby,
what's in this
it's bad
drink."
out there. All right, that's enough.
You saw it here first. Mr. Gary Hibbert karaoke. We got to do this real life.
Yes, that was fun. That was entertaining. That was my deep bass voice, Adriana.
Woohoo!
Man, you got me hot.
I love it.
Even though it's cold outside, I'm really warm inside. That was fun. That was good. That's the first.
Oh, good. I
Yes.
love being the first. This is good. I drove here and it's cold outside and it's snowy. When I heard your deep voice, I'm like, this is perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you for entertaining me.
You're welcome. Well, listen, I am happy to have you here. I want to get into all the fun things that you've been up to. I've been watching everything you've been doing online, social media. I love your new show that you've got, the podcast. You're doing multifamily investing. Like, what are you not doing? You always, every time I see you, this looks like you're always having fun.
I love having fun. And I think overall I can be quite serious when I'm with my thoughts. But I love putting myself out there, and I'm my most energetic and having fun when I'm with people. So this is a lot of fun for me right here.
Yeah,
Yes.
good. Well, and we were supposed to do this. What is this now? Like about 3 or 4 months in the making, right? It's about that.
Oh my God. Yes. It was, the end of last year.
Right.
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
I can.
Yeah?
It took me a minute, and it's actually a really cool story. So I'm glad to share.
Okay. All right, cool.
So we had our podcast booked, and over Halloween, I was carving pumpkin with my kids using a very large kitchen knife, which to everybody out there, don't do that.
Okay.
There are apparently pumpkin carving tools, which I was completely unaware of. And I ended up sliding my hand through the knife and cut through 3 fingers, including a nerve and a tendon on my right hand.
So where, like at the front or in the back?
So it was at the front. The knife was in the pumpkin. I went to push it down further and it slid down the knife. My daughter was right next to me. And the moment I looked at my hand, I went, oh no, I'm going to faint. Because I saw, bone, and I knew something was really wrong with my finger by the way it looked. I'm like, got up and I said, we need to go to the hospital. Call dad, put some pants on. Let's get in the car. We need to do something. I need to get to the hospital right away. I went from like just a normal life. And this is the thing with accidents. It happens within a couple of seconds.
So fast.
And your life is just different. Mm-hmm. I just thought, okay, what now?
Yeah. And you probably didn't even feel any pain at the time, right? It just happened so fast.
I just felt like I was going to faint. There was no pain. I don't know if I was in shock. I mean, I'm not good with blood. I've never seen the inside of my body like that. So it was scary stuff. Very Halloween themed at my house. And my daughter was amazing, helped me out the best as she could. Anton wasn't home, so had to figure out how to get myself to hospital. And then got stitches, had to get surgery on my finger to fix a tendon and a nerve, and was in a cast for 12 weeks. So went from like fully functioning to not be able to use my right hand at all.
And are you right-handed?
I am.
Okay.
Now, luckily, we're at a time and age where we use computers and voice to text and Zoom calls, and I have a team. And this is the thing when they tell you, but beyond not being able to use my right hand, I was in surgery, in pain, in medication for weeks. So I also wasn't fully functional, and I had things to do. I had, investors and deals and conversations and meetings. And, when they say, once you set up your business, go away for a week and 2 or a month and see how it's doing, see how it can survive without you. I really felt so grateful and lucky for how I have built my business and created the systems and the teams, because within a few text messages, everybody knew what they needed to do. I'm like, I'm off commission. I'm in surgery. I'm at the hospital. I'm zombied out on pain medication. So this is like what needs to be taken care of. And off they went. And I felt really grateful to have amazing partners and amazing team members.
That's a crazy story. Well, and then what would you say percentage-wise you're back now in regards to being able to close your hand or make a fist?
Look, like 100%.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the crazy thing is, I had no idea about how nerves and tendons work and how long it takes to heal. And I don't think the doctors tell you fully right away. I think they're like easing you into the information. At some point in time, I found out that it takes a year to fully heal. In fact, I went to a conference and met somebody who had the same surgery that I did. And she said 3 years later, she's still unable to carry things because it's connected to your whole body and to your grip strength. So I go to the gym. I lift weights. I'm like, when am I going to get back to the gym? She's like, well, maybe in a year. Like, there's no way.
Because I saw you online. You were in the gym.
I know.
And that's amazing to see what you could do. And I guess that's why maybe they don't tell you exactly how long it's going to take, because everybody's different.
Everybody's different. And she said that because I went back after I met this person who 3 years later still not healed. And I asked her, like, tell me the truth, okay? Like, tell me the honest truth. What is it going to actually heal? And she said, don't worry, everybody's different. Just keep going on your journey. And I made a decision. I had to make a decision at some point. I had to make 2 decisions. One is I'm healing 100%. There's no doubts. Like, there's no such option that I'm not.
Mindset.
That was fully focused on, like, I just am. People would ask me, how are you doing? And they would want to talk about it. I would say, I'm getting better every day. I'm getting stronger every day. And that's my language. That's my thought process every single day. Second thing is, when I noticed that I had to do this therapy consistently and it was painful like crazy, I'm like, I can't be on pain meds. I don't want to do that. I need to work. I need to operate. So got off the pain meds and I'm like, pain it is. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I understand now what I have to go do.
Right.
And I'm just going to go do it.
Well, listen, I'm glad you've made a full recovery. That's amazing in such a short period of time. What was that then? What, 6 months?
3 months, 3.5 months. I was out of the cast. A week earlier, they wanted me to.
Yeah.
The week after I started going to the gym, lifting weights and a little bit at a time. And I went back. They actually called me and said, you got to come back for follow-up, And I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Because to me, I'm like, I'm good. I'm done. And the surgeon and the therapist looked at it and they were like, we're taking pictures, we're taking videos because we're going to put it in the hospital website because we don't see results like this very often at all. So
they're going to document you.
Like, yes, post it everywhere.
Yeah.
This is good news.
The Netflix show is coming out. But listen, that's an incredible story. And I'm glad, again, that you've made a full recovery. But you know what? And so there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about today. One of them is scaling your business. And so obviously, how were you able to do it? And it obviously allowed you to be able to heal yourself and do it, effectively and concentrate on the most important thing, which is your health and your physical being. I also want to dive into your multifamily investing, because I think you've moved out of Ontario and you're actually down in New Brunswick. And then I also want to touch on raising capital. I think those are all 3 very important topics. And so let's touch on, I think in the beginning, like your multifamily investing and what you're doing now in New Brunswick and why you decided to leave Ontario.
Yeah. So it's easier, out there. That's really the reason. Very landlord friendly in comparison to Ontario. Obviously, lower price points, lower, better rent to price ratio, better cap rates. Overall, easier market to get into. We are big fish there now in comparison to what it would have been in Ontario in trying to grow a portfolio here. I love the bigger deals right now during this time of higher interest rates and lending, tightening up all around. The bigger the building, the better it's doing. I still own triplexes here, and I own 52 units there in comparison. And then lots of buildings in between those unit counts, and the bigger, the better has been my just proof of concept in seeing the numbers.
Right. And I would think also too, especially with where the interest rates are today, it does make more sense to do this at a larger scale as opposed to doing these 1 and 2 and 3 units, right?
I would say to any investor who's starting out, like, there is no reason why you wouldn't go right away to a 6, 7 units. That's the entry point on the multifamily side. The amount of effort that you're going to put into a property, there's no reason why that amount of effort should go on a duplex or triplex. Okay. If you are the higher unit counts, you're going to be better off overall in terms of your ROI, cash flow, scaling, even renovations, financing. Right. It's just easier all around, believe it or not.
Right. What about the landlord and tenant board? That's a big one, right? I mean, I think everybody knows what's happening here in Ontario, and it's just we'll call it a shit show.
It's a shit show.
It really is.
Yes. Yeah.
How is it different out there in New Brunswick?
So there isn't a hearing process there when the tenant's not paying rent. If a tenant's not paying rent, you submit them the proper notices. Within 30 days, you're calling the sheriff department, and they're coming in. And if the tenant doesn't leave, which I don't think that has ever happened to us, because usually when you give a tenant notice, they'll either pay up or they'll leave. They don't have an option.
So
here,
how quick are we
just
talking?
Stay. 30 days.
Done. 30 days.
Done. They're
and
out.
What's it now in Ontario? I think we're like, 8 to 10 months, maybe longer?
I have one in hearing right now for my triplex, and we applied back in December. We have a hearing for June.
And have they paid a single penny since then?
So they have paid bits and pieces of their rent, but not in full, and they're quite behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could be now, another maybe 3 months, 4 months?
Yep, out of pocket. We have to put in money into the property because it doesn't cash flow a triplex, and then one of the tenants not paying.
Right. Wild. What about getting things set up then from are you doing like a shareholder? Are you doing GPLP? Like, how are you getting this all started? Because people hear, these larger buildings and they're like, this is very daunting. How difficult is it?
Everything is difficult when you're first doing it, or it's not difficult. It feels difficult.
Great answer.
It's new.
It's
right?
true though.
Yes.
Yeah. Even if you buy a single family investment property, it's difficult. Your very first one.
Yeah. So it gets easier as you go through the process. You don't know what you don't know. And nothing that I've ever done, even though I always start with coaching and education and, conversations and hiring the right professionals, even they don't know what to tell you, and you don't know what to ask. Mm-hmm. So as you're going through it, I'll give you an example. We did a GPLP on our 52 units. A year later, we're still learning about filing taxes and how it works and the structure and the order of where the money should flow, things like that. Nobody quite told us in the beginning. We didn't ask because we didn't know to ask.
Right.
So there's so much learning that goes on. We have done every structure possible, to be honest. Every deal is a bit different. I do have my preferred structures, though. For anything that requires about $1 million of capital or less, I will gladly go with a shareholders agreement. That is the easiest. That is the fastest. That is the least expensive one. Anything above $1 million, lenders will start to ask questions where the funds are coming from, and they don't want to see, 12. I mean, we have 20 investors in our LPGP. They don't want to see that on a shareholders agreement. So you're kind of tapped out at about, let's say 7 to 8 investors on the shareholders agreement. Okay. Now you are at that point, you do need to go to a different structure.
Okay, so that's good to know then, right? So under $1 million, you want to go with a shareholder. If you're over $1 million, then you go with the whole GPLP. And then what are we talking about costs when we're talking about that larger structure and then with the shareholder?
Yeah, it's quite significant. I think in total, we must have paid somewhere between $35,000 to $45,000 for the structure setup. And then there's ongoing fees because now you have to file taxes every year. It's a structure. The GPLP is a structure of 3 corporations. There's a trust, there's a GP corporation, there's an LP corporation. And there's like a triangle structure that goes in there, and every single one needs to file taxes and have their own procedures completed.
Okay.
So that's costly as well.
So now I'm an investor. So you'd be the GP.
That's
okay.
correct.
So you're general, and I'm in the limited partnership. And what's the minimum typically? 100,000, 50,000.
200,000 is minimum. Yes.
But you can go less if you choose to.
You can. Yes.
So 100,000. It goes into the LP. There's 10 maybe other 9 other investors. So there's 10 of us in total. That LP files a tax, and then do they each get their own kind of tax receipt or form?
So we do tax slips.
Okay.
That gets sent out to each individual investor, so they use it on their personal tax. Yes.
Okay. So it's not them really filing. I mean, they file it, but they don't do any of the number crunching and all that.
No, we do all the work as a GP. Obviously, we keep good books in the account. We have bookkeepers. We have the accountants that work with us. We send them all the information, then we review everything together, and then we send the slips to our investors once a year, and then they use those slips to file their own personal taxes in the beginning of the year.
Got it. What about the CMHC MLI structure or program that's out there right now? Are you guys taking advantage of that?
100%. I think that's really the icing on the cake for any multifamily investor. Nothing is like it. It really is the best product out there. And people complain that it's stringent, the process, and a lot of work. And indeed it is, but I don't mind it. To be honest, we've become so good at it. We've had 3 MLI Select refinances already. 2 are funding like in the next 6 weeks.
Okay.
And we have one other one coming up soon. So we love it. It really gives us the best rates, the best loan to value. And
can you go through some of the benefits?
Yeah. So
just high level.
Yeah, of course. So with the MLI Select specifically, there's a point system to it. In New Brunswick, we've been lucky. A lot of the buildings are quite older, and the heating systems there that are very common are oil. Okay. So we have been able to get the highest points values in the MLI Select program through converting the oil systems into electric baseboard heaters and like mini splits.
So there's like a green element to it then.
Correct.
Okay.
So it was really meant to encourage a few things: energy efficiency, affordability, and accessibility. So within one of those 3 categories, you can collect points by implementing some of those changes to your buildings.
Okay.
And you can get audits that tell you exactly like how to get the highest points. And that's what we do. We have been able to mostly get it from energy efficiency. However, we do have one of our buildings that one of the ones that are coming up in the next 6 months, we're going on the affordability route. So we're able to lock in what the MLI Select does. If you're able to reach all the points, is you can go all the way up to 95% loan to value on a refinance.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And then what about the amortization? Was it 50 years?
50
I think
years. So it really depends. The trick there with the amortization is it has to spell out in your appraisal. So they're going to use the appraisal number for that. So we work very closely with our appraisers, similarly with the audit, to make sure that we're implementing things that will allow for 50-year amortization. Not every building, depending on what kind of renovations or finishes you're putting in there. So for example, windows. If your windows are at the end of their life, it's going to be hard for the appraiser to give you a 50 amortization on it. And the MLI and the CMHC is going to go based on your appraisal. Got it.
Okay. And then when you say accessibility, what do you mean?
Yeah. So it needs to be units that need to be accessible to wheelchair.
Okay.
So that's ramps at the front, so different height countertops, wider doors, bars, showers instead of tubs, things like that. So there's requirements by the building code.
Interesting.
That will make units accessible.
Yeah.
It's very common if you take, let's say, a few units of your main floor and make them accessible, that gives you quite a few points towards your MLI.
Okay. All right. So that's something that you are heavily utilizing right now. And then so going forward, as long as they keep this program active, you're going to continue to keep using it.
So they have recently made a change which has impacted us greatly, unfortunately.
Son of a bitch. Of course.
Every time something's too good, they're like, oh, it's too good. Let me make it a little harder here for, So apparently, and this is something, again, you don't know what you don't know, this rule has been in effect, but they weren't reinforcing it, which is specifically if you use the MLI as a refinance for a renovation, as long as you're paying back renovation funds, you have to wait 24 months before you're able to refinance.
You have to wait 24 months before you can refinance. Okay. All right. And that's something new that just recently came out when?
So it's, again, apparently has come out. It's been there since 2020. However, they weren't reinforcing it. So we were able to do it over and over again until they had because the product is so good, they had such a high volume of applications that they needed to cut back. Their timelines just got too long. They were too overwhelmed with applications. And they said, we're going to need to find ways to cut back. And so they started reinforcing this rule, which cut down on a significant amount. They just denied a lot of files and continue to do so based on that rule.
Okay. So, but it's not a denial. It's just like you're not going to be able to do your refinance as quickly as you thought you're going to be able to.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Got it. Now, what about, so you're out in New Brunswick. It's a smaller town. I assume that you're investing. Do you like the smaller towns better than the larger cities?
I very much do. Even here in Ontario, like I had investments in Hamilton, but I also had investments in Chatham, Ontario, and I quite enjoy Chatham. I love the working class, smaller town, good people, feel, and that's where I feel like we get the most, the better tenant profile.
Yeah, interesting. We have a private lending company, and Neil is part of that. And I remember when we first started back in 2017, some of the private lending that we were doing were in these smaller cities and smaller towns. I'm like, yeah, but isn't that riskier? And it's like, nah, there's a different mentality. There's a different mindset of people out there where in the city, you might find that they may not pay you, or it's just a different mentality. But out there, it's they want to pay you. They have pride of ownership, remember, going to be ownership, but pride of their home, or pride of their mindset of we should pay people back. Very different.
100%. Not only that, like our properties there, and it's the kind of property that we forget we have it sometimes. That's the kind of property you want. You're like, like everything has been good. I have never had a tenant default there. I've had tenants that weren't able to pay, but they were overly willing to move out. They're like, sorry, I can't pay anymore, so I'm going to go.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you. And low maintenance, tenants are great. Like working class, good people. We have a nurse that lives there. We have a teacher that lives there. I'm like, this is exactly the kind of tenant and profile that I want.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anything else on the multifamily space that you think you should touch on before we move into like raising capital? Because that's such an important topic.
Yes. Anything else on multifamily space? I do think I'll just repeat what we talked about earlier when we weren't recording, which is I find with real estate investors, if you've been in the business long enough, multifamily is ultimately where you end up, because that's where it makes sense as a business.
Yes.
So we talked about that, and you made a comment there, so we'll go there.
Yeah. And I said, multifamily is one space, but also two, private lending, where it's more passive investing, where you just lend your money out and you can lay on the beach, sign a couple documents, and you get monthly cash flow.
100%. I said, that is the next level, and that is where I'm heading eventually. Yes. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to raising capital. And the reason why I want to touch on that is because when you look at the multifamily space, you're obviously not using all of your money. Most of it is being raised. But I want to break it down and maybe even go back to the beginning steps, because I think that's important, where how do you raise capital, even maybe for a single family home, then you get into maybe like a 2-unit, to then get to the ability and the mindset to saying, okay, I can actually raise more than 100,000. I can now maybe raise $1 million. That's a huge leap. How did you start to begin to feel confident in the ability to be able to raise capital?
So raising capital is about relationship building.
Amen.
Especially when it comes from a non-licensed source, right? Like I'm a non-licensed professional working in the real estate. I have an investment firm. And it's about relationships, really is. So that's where I spend a lot of my time. But like I said earlier, I love people. So that marries so well with what I do. In terms of getting comfortable, it was definitely tough for sure. At first, it feels uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable because I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the habit of having the conversations around investing capital and raising capital and deals. It took me some time to get comfortable doing it.
What were some of the mistakes you made in the beginning? I want to know if they're like mine.
The very first investor package that I sent out, when I look at it now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe anybody invested in this. It was a great deal.
Yeah.
And then reputation, like first rule of capital raising, don't lose your investors' money.
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to build a pool of investors over time, because that is my goal and my value. Like I want to build long-term relationships with my partners. And they will continue to reinvest. Very often now, when I have a deal available, it gets filled by my current pool of investors that have invested with us multiple times.
Right.
Because we build a relationship.
But the first time you started doing it, the first 6 months, okay, how difficult was it? And how many times, because it took me probably about, I think, 7-8 months to really start to, okay, I get it. I'm selling this property, but I'm not selling myself. That was a huge realization for me. Was that for you as well too?
That's a good question. I don't know that I quite see it that way, because when I'm borrowing funds, and I don't know what kind of context you were raising capital for, but every capital that I raise is mostly from my own deals. Mm-hmm. So the way I see it is, I do feel personally responsible for that. I do know that the investment is the one that's borrowing, or the corporation. But in my mind, I wouldn't borrow anything that I can't pay back.
Okay.
This is how I started. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. I know that I could sell my house and pay you back, or I could sell this other investment and pay you back, but I wouldn't feel comfortable over raising to the point that I know I cannot pay people back.
But where were you finding these investors that were going to invest with you? Was it friends? Was it family?
Yeah, great question.
Co-workers? Were you going to networking events?
Yeah. So a lot of people say to start with your friends and family. I did the opposite, because my friends and family would not have listened to me at that time. Like, they did not know what I was working on.
Okay.
So I did join networking groups and educational groups. And that's really what gave me the context. When you go to a place where you have paid to be part of, now you're having different conversations with other qualified people that have also paid to be there and are there very intentionally to invest in real estate, to learn about real estate, to grow their investment portfolio, to create wealth. They have very similar goals to you. That makes the conversation so much easier. So a lot of conversations. Raising capital is a sales, skill set. And the more people know about what you're doing and what you're selling, the higher your chance of converting. So it was just a lot of Zoom calls during COVID, and just one Zoom call after the other, offering the deal, having the conversations, understanding how to talk about, understanding what's important to the investors. As they were asking me questions, I would go back to my investor package and adjust to include some of those answers for them, because I knew what they wanted to know.
Got it. Okay. So you're going to these networking events. I really want to break it down because I think it's so important for people to grasp this. And I think they hear it, but they're like, okay, but I don't get it. There's something missing. So you're at these networking events, you're getting business cards, and then you're right. And then you're taking them home, and then you're putting them into a database so that now you can email them or talk to them, or you do an individual Zoom calls.
Okay. I'm going to make it a little easier than that, because I don't do business cards. You go to networking events, so participate. Go to an Eventbrite, search on Facebook, go to the local groups that you have now and find out what events are happening. You're going to go to that event and you're going to have a Calendly link. You're going to set up a Calendly link on your calendar with times that you are available to meet. Once you're there, you're having conversations with them and you're going to let people know what you do. And more importantly, you're going to find out what they're looking for, because it has to be a fit. You don't want to take time with somebody that, if you're trying to raise capital, that has no money of their own and they're looking to raise capital. So the conversation is trying to find out what are people working on, what they're looking for, what are their goals, and to see if they're a good fit. If they are, I book the call right there and then. Let's get you on the calendar. I'd love to connect further with you. At the very least, or I'm getting a phone number, I'm writing on my phone, I'm sending them a text message right away, I'm sending them an Instagram message or a Facebook message, and then I'm following up.
Got it. Okay, so you're actually specifically asking, hey, look, are you looking to get into the apartment building space? Yes, I am. Now, you're not saying, hey, do you want to be the GP or the LP? You're just like, hey, you want to get into this space. Perfect. Okay, let's have a meeting and let's kind of see where you are within this particular space and if it's a good fit.
Yes, my first conversation is always discovery, because you just also never know what that's going to lead, right? So I want to understand, what is a person looking for, what they're trying to accomplish, how old are they? Because if I'm talking to somebody who's older in life, retirement age, they don't necessarily have the time to buy and hold. They may not have that opportunity or time. Do they have registered funds? Because all of that will give me a lot of context on how I can potentially work with them. And are we a good fit? Can we have a conversation? We talked about that earlier. Do we enjoy each other?
So important.
Do I feel like there's a connection in values, a synergy, and an integrity piece? All of that is my first call, is a discovery call.
Now, you touched on RRSPs, or retirement funds. Can you use that in type of investment that you're purchasing?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
However, we do leverage mortgage positions at different times for different types of investments. So I will use register funds to register a first position mortgage on one of our other buildings, or a second position mortgage on one of our other buildings. So we have done that several times.
Got it. But you can't use that like in the LP.
We
Okay. So it's got to be cash, or it's got to be HELOC?
That's correct.
Yeah,
yes.
HELOC.
Yeah.
Okay.
HELOC would be considered cash as well. So we cannot use register funds on an equity position. You cannot use register funds to buy shares on a holding company. That's the rule. So you have to invest it in a mortgage product. Which we have done several times. So I like to take note. Hey, this person does have a lot of registered funds that they're willing to invest, and I keep that on my database.
Right.
So what's next? I have a database of, you talked about having your own database. Have a database. I have a list of our investors where I keep notes on registered funds, or they're interested in private lending, or they're interested in equity partnerships, multifamily, short-term rentals. Because you never know either. Maybe you're raising capital for a property in Mexico, and I know a couple of people that are interested in doing, something in Mexico. So that's my opportunity to connect you to.
I cannot express how important it is to have a database. One of the most important things I was taught back in like 2010, make sure you have a database. And you broke it down, I think, so clearly. It's just whoever's in there, you're making your notes. And there's different types of databases. There's stuff out there that are completely free that you can use. Like, I'm not sure if MailChimp is still free under a certain amount. I think but that's where we started.
Yeah, we use Flowdesk now. Like, MailChimp is amazing. Like, honestly, any of them are great, and they do have free version, and they have the paid version depending. But ultimately, having those emails, I heard a statistic yesterday, which was nuts. I hadn't heard that before. They said that emails, so when you're sending out emails, it has a 4,000% conversion in comparison to social media, which is only at 2%. And the reason is because that is in your database.
Right.
At some point in time, that person gave you permission for whatever reason to exchange that information, and now you're in their inbox, versus the constant, flashy and entertainment of social media. Even though I love social media, personally, I'm a social media person. It's just, there's too much to grab your attention there, a little less in your inbox.
Well, the database can actually, now you can break it down, you can organize it, and it depends on how detailed you want to be. There's some out there that are completely very detailed of, how much they've had to invest, what timeline. Like, I've got two types of databases, where I've got one for my realtors, which is Follow Up Boss, which is a great one because the whole thing about being a realtor is following up. And then you also have the other one where, we're sending out newsletters, and we're always there so that they can see what we're doing, whether it be events or here's an off-market deal that you might be interested in. And so then, now that they're in your database, do you send out deals to that database? How do you then get them into your actual deal that you have?
Yes, so I do send out emails. I also send out private messages based on the conversations that I've had. I already know what are the people that would be a good fit. I always start with my current investors network. So they have the privilege always to get a first bid at any of my investment options.
The inner circle.
Yes, I have an inner circle. I call it Investors Club. And they really get opportunity to continue to work with us because they are my priority. From there on, I will open up to the, other connections and relationships that I've built over time.
Okay. So that inner circle now, do they get paid to be a part of that inner circle? Is it like a membership?
Yeah. So the membership is investing with us in that specific circle.
Okay.
I am starting a coaching program in raising capital.
Okay.
And because it's such a skill that I was also saying earlier, it's a skill that once you learn, you can't unlearn it. You know it now. And it's so transferable. That's transferable to being a realtor, and it's a similar skill set. It's transferable to starting a new business. You need sales in your business. It is a sales skill set. There's its own particular components when it comes to real estate and Ontario security laws. So there is such a thing as raising capital the right way.
100%.
Especially during this time, as we have seen so many people get in trouble, unfortunately, with how they build their portfolios. And I feel so grateful on how we have built ours. As of this year, we are planning to pay back 100% of our investors out in all of our investment options because we've been working so diligently through the process. And I was speaking to one of my investors yesterday. She said, I invested with you twice in 2 different deals. I have this rule that I don't do that. I only invest, because I want to diversify. She said, but I just really liked your deal. So I invested with you. And I have to be honest, this is the best deal I've done. And obviously, as somebody in my position, is so grateful and happy to hear that from her. And I thought, how can I pass the message along? That one is there is a lot of capital out there, and there's a lot of good people that want to invest and grow their portfolio. 2 is there is a right way of doing it so that you don't lose your investors' money, so that you don't get in trouble with the securities laws. And how can I share that with everybody?
So what do you think that you did different compared to the ones that have found themselves in trouble? What was it? Did you just do good on the buy? Ethics?
So, I think there's a combination of things, but one of the top things that I bring to is 95% of our investors are equity partners.
Okay.
As opposed to, high rate fixed types of lending opportunities.
So one would be equity.
Lending.
So one would be equity, and the other one would be debt, I guess, right? So
Correct.
it'd be either raising debt or raising equity, or
Correct.
not raising equity, but yeah, I guess raising equity.
Yeah. So to us, the equity piece is still a debt in the sense that the way it's outlined in our contracts, we are still, paying the investors back first. And we do want to make sure they get their capital back out, and then we continue to hold. I remember sharing this with somebody, back in the summer, and she's like, why would you split? Because then it's a 50-50. We only own 50% of the property, me and my GP partner, and the investors own 50%. And she said, why would you share so much equity with, since you're giving their money back? And I'm like, because to me, it's a commitment to each other, long-term commitment here that we're making to write it out together. And, our best projections will give them their money back, and they'll get to own their shares for another 5 to 10 years, however long it takes for us to decide to sell or buy out their shares. And I love that. I love that there is a potential for them to earn such a high return over the next 5 to 10 years, because that's part of my goal. I want them to grow wealth. I want them to be happy. I want them, I want to do it together. I'm not here to go it alone. If I wanted to go alone, I would take a different route.
Okay.
But also, if it doesn't quite turn out as we thought it would, we're writing it out together.
Okay, so let me kind of just break that down, because it's all still part of raising capital here. Is that one way of doing it is when you're raising, it's all debt, so I get that, but you're like, I'm going to raise this capital, we're going to put into this building, I'm going to give you a set percentage, whatever it is, 15%, 16%, for the next 3 years, and then I'm going to give you your money back, and now you have no equity. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, give me the 100,000. I'm going to give you a percentage every year, and then also when I'm done, I'm going to give you back your money, but now you're going to have an equity stake. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Make sure I got that.
Yeah. So on the equity side, there's no fixed return. I'm not, especially when we do a lot of value add opportunities. So for the first year or two, we're in renovations. There's no income.
Got it.
So they're not having any
okay.
returns.
So it's just equity. So kind of like what's that, when you refinance it, here's what we made, and then we're going to split it amongst everybody that was part of it.
Correct. But the growth on the value add, as you know, it's massive. Our 50 units, we bought it for $4.25 million. We're refinancing at $12 million.
What?
This is crazy. And this...
How do I get in that inner circle?
come invest with us. This is the advantage, because even though they didn't see fixed returns for that amount of time, the value of their shares have increased significantly. They bought it when they were worth, whatever the building was worth. Now it's worth that much more. So it is a really pleasant, conversation to have when we get to bring that kind of value to our investors.
Right. Any final kind of points just on raising capital that if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I want to get into this, that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I think anybody can raise $1 million. I really believe that. There's obviously a commitment that takes on your end of building the relationships, building the database, and having the right opportunities. Because again, we're talking about how do you raise it the right way for lifelong type of relationships with investors. That's the goal. How do you build lifelong relationships with your investors so that at some point, this is all you need? You have your database of investors that invest with you. You don't need to go outside of it, and you can grow together. Because that one investor I talked about, she said, I'm giving her funds back on our refinance. And she said, is the next one here?
Right.
So that's what you want to create.
And you want them to have a good experience as well, too, because then they'll continue to want to invest with you.
So, and this is like the idea of the Investors Club or the Inner Circle, is just to really generate a community feel for good communication. We send out quarterly reports. I make sure that I get on a call with them. I want to get on a call with them. It's the quarter. I haven't talked to you in a while. I want to catch up, see how you're doing, what's going on. If you have any questions, when things are not going well, which we did have that adjustment on one of our buildings because of the MLI Select, I was on a call with every single investor, 20 investors all over Christmas break, talking to every single one of them and saying, we've hit a snag here and we're working on it. This is what we're doing to mitigate risk. And I love that. I love that building, again, capital raising is about building relationships.
Building a relationship, and also, which I think you just touched on there, which is really important, is communication.
Yeah.
As when things aren't going well and they're starting to break down a bit, you got to be able to now provide that type of communication. Also, I think at the right time as well too, because you also want to put them in panic mode. You want to be able to say, okay, here's the issue that we're going through. Here's a pathway through. Let's kind of work through that. Okay, cool. Maybe a few days later, here's the update, guys. Here's the issues that we were really in, and now we're here and we feel like we have a pathway through this.
100%. When I had the conversation, we had this is what's going on. This is how it's impacted us. This is what we're pursuing in terms of solutions, A, B, and C. And, if one doesn't work, we'll go to the other, and we'll keep you updated. And I feel like we have turned a corner in that building, thankfully, and being able to come back and say, okay, that worked. We went to that solution and we're now in a different spot.
Money flows to people who are solution driven.
Yes.
It really does. Yes. When I look back at the problems that I had 10 years ago to the problems that I'm dealing with today, they're massive. They're huge.
Give me an example.
Give an example? Oh my gosh. I can't go into too much detail on this, but I just recently went through one over the last week, and I had to, go through it, really step back and say, okay, I haven't been through something like this before. However, how do I get through it so that I can find a way to get through it at the end? And it really comes down to all of the other big problems that I've had throughout my life. And then realizing that I'll find a way to figure it out, and then I did, and I'm like, oh, so it's just another test, another way of being able to resolve any type of situation that I'm in, as opposed to just burying my head in the sand.
I love that, and I think when you're going through something stressful, there's those moments of I just need to go back to bed and get under the covers, I need to take a moment here. I love. I don't like saying that because I don't want to attract it, but I enjoy challenges because that's where I find my most growth happens. I'm not welcoming it. Please keep the challenges away, universe. But I when I am in a challenge, I have my moments. Like I said, even with my hand, that's a perfect example. I had moments, but I really worked at staying focused on the results that I wanted versus the reality that I'm in. If I want these results, then I can really pursue actively solutions that are going to take me there versus being down in the dumps about the current circumstances.
Right. And I know I was being very vague on that one, but I just can't get into it.
That's okay. That's okay. I understand.
Yeah. But that was just one that kind of came to my mind. It was like, yeah, because I was actually going through it, and I understand what stress is now. I'm like, this is what stress feels like. Like I've had stress before, but this was a pretty big one, and I'm like, God damn, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. But we made it. We made it through, so it's all good. Okay, last thing I want to touch on is scaling your business, right? And we touched on this at the beginning, and especially what happened with your hand, the importance of building a team so that you can watch things from a distance and still have things move the way that you need them to move in the right direction. How did you get to that point of starting to scale your business? I mean, hiring that first person is difficult. That's the hardest thing to do. When was the right time, or how did you know?
So I feel like it's like having a kid. It never quite feels like the right time. It feels like you need to save up some more, grow this a bit more, get a little older, whatever.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the right time is now. I mean, the right time is if you're ready to scale and you understand that the biggest value in wealth is your time. At the end of the day, money is amazing, but it doesn't do you any good if it's sitting in your bank account and you have a stressful, crazy life that you're not taking any time to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to spend time in the way that you want to. So when you think of wealth that way, that wealth is really freedom of time, then the quicker you can set up systems and teams to allow you to take that time back, the quicker you experience what wealth is. Because I've had like millions of dollars sitting in the bank account, and I've had crazy times. And really, there's something about the freedom of your time and being able to go do something that otherwise you would never have been able to, that really represents what wealth is to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So who was your first hire? Was
My
this an
first
admin?
hire was an admin. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And because you were getting burnt out?
There was a lot to do. And in my case specifically, I'm not great with compute. How do I say? It's not that I'm not great with technology. I don't enjoy being behind a computer all day.
Right. Okay.
I'm a people person. Get me out there, get me selling, networking, closing partnerships, envisioning, creating opportunities. That's what I do, right? Get me speaking on stage, get me, that's what I do. If I have to be sitting in the office, which I did all of that, writing up investor packages, legal documents, making sure it's signed, processes, reviewing things. Eventually, I die very slowly.
Yeah, I am like that. I am like that as well. I do have one day though that I do stay home. So Mondays that helps me plan out my whole entire week. I'm like, okay, let me get back to emails and everything that I need to get done. And then after that, okay, boom, I'm in podcast. Okay, I'm over here. Okay, I'm at my Toronto office. Okay, I'm doing an event. Okay, I'm doing a talk. I like that. I need to be bumping elbows. I need to be talking with people because to me, that's where I think a lot of the magic happens.
100%. That being said, don't get me wrong. I work from home most of the time. I am in my computer, but I'm in a lot of meetings on Zoom in my computer. So it feels like I'm out there. So I needed somebody that was going to be there doing the back end things, making sure things are filled out. The investors have all the documents, just working on the back end. It honestly took me 4 tries to
get the right admin,
start to learn how to do this, because I hired somebody just because I kind of knew them and that felt easy to me. And I did not know how to interview, what skills I needed, how to train. I didn't know anything, and it did not go well, as you can imagine. And then I hired an intern. I think a lot of small businesses have this, and I don't know if it may be an unpopular opinion here, but a lot of small businesses think that hiring interns is a great way to go about it because they're looking for experience and you're looking for free labor. And I am very opposed to interns. Okay. I have never had an intern that worked out.
Okay.
Because nobody in their right mind will want to show up consistently when they're not getting paid.
Right.
Maybe it's exciting for the first week. And then they're dropping out and they're looking at something else and they're looking, hey, I need to make money here. I can't do this. The other thing is that also means they have zero experience. I'm looking for people that are experienced that can help me in the things that I don't want to do or can do, not somebody that doesn't know anything and I'm having to train them. And that's even more time consuming.
Right. Now, once you got a good admin, what about the documentation in the process? Because I know for us in the beginning, man, we kept hiring people, but it wasn't being documented. And then we have to retrain them all over again. What did you do in that?
So I found something interesting about building systems. Specifically, like what I realized is that systems don't build systems. People build systems. So the people will come in and they will build a system that makes sense to them. And what I liked about how we've done things is we're documenting it because we're building systems on a CRM. So there's workflows. Everything is in a workflow. Every single system is in a process that has steps to it that is documented through the workflow and automations. So when somebody new comes in, not recently, maybe like almost a year ago now, I did have a changeover with Mins that's helping our back end. And she came in and there was already a lot of systems built up. So we're definitely not starting from scratch here. But she looked at the system and went, I can see how I can improve this and, adjust and change things that make sense to me. And she's the one that's running the system. I'm not. It's her day to day. So I give her a lot of freedom to be like, okay, as long as this is the goal and we're accomplishing this, you can tweak and adjust to your needs and how you like things done and how it's organized in your own head.
And why I like that too is because then you're empowering them where they're creating a business within your business.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. She feels empowered. She feels confident. She owns that system.
Right.
She doesn't even want me in there. I love it. I'm like, hey, we need this thing done. We need this sign.
Right.
Send this email. And she's like, okay, I got it.
Right.
And that is my goal. So I found that, and I think and I'm not a big multi-corporation, so I don't know how they do it because it becomes heavy and overly documented because there is such a thing as over-systemizing your business.
Correct.
So systemize it to the point that your employees can get their job done and let them do the systems because they're owning it. And the documentation will happen in different ways, SOPs, video trainings, but also workflows. I love workflows because I think those are the most easiest way to understand what a system is supposed to be doing and how it functions.
Okay. So how big is your team now? And then what are some of the different roles that you have? So you have an admin. I assume you probably have operations, asset management. You want to break that down for us?
Yeah. So I have about 4 people on my team. And that includes an operations manager, and she does all of our asset management back-end things. I have a marketing person. So she helps with the YouTube channel, social media, email campaigns, things like that. And then we have a couple of people that are VAs and they do general admin work for us in different ways. And I feel grateful for them because like I said, what I realized is you said what it takes to scale. Scale comes in ebbs and flows. There will be slow times and there will be times to grow. What I did was we scaled our real estate portfolio so fast that everything became chaotic. It was from 20 units to, over 160 units in 18 months. And it just became chaotic with documents and investors and taxes and insurance and mortgages and bank
emails
accounts,
coming in and
corporations, lawyers, holy crap, how do you even start to get this organized?
Right. And it's just becoming a big chaos. It's chaotic.
It felt chaotic.
Yeah.
This is when you systemize. You can't really systemize without having the chaos in some ways.
Yeah.
Because without the actual thing that you're doing, what are you systemizing? So I'd say people sometimes want to start a business, let me systemize, let me plan out everything. I'm you can't really do that. Until you're operational and you're selling your product and you're in movement, what are you systemizing? What are you documenting?
How difficult was that though, when you're going through that growing pain of getting everything systemized? And how long were your days when it comes to hours? Because I think people don't understand this. At least for me, there were times where they were 14, 15, 16-hour days. And it was just from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed to get things going. I didn't hate it all, but it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Okay, so you went through the same thing then.
Yes. So it's so funny because where I am now, it's hard to even like remember like it. I understood the challenge in front of me. I'm like, there's nothing I can do now other than to sit down and figure this out and create the systems and processes. And it's a daily journey. It's like, okay, what's the priority? How do we get that going? And then what's the priority? How do we get that going? In the midst of systemizing, I have another 10 ideas. Oh, it'd be great to do this and to do that. And let's build this. And I'm like,
it never ends.
So I have like an idea like bubble there on my system. And it's like, okay, things for the future. And honestly, looking back, most of them get done over time. But it's just like, what is the priority? Making sure the team understands what the priority is. The other thing is having people in the right roles. I find that the person that's doing that thing, the return needs to be so immediate and so clear. Otherwise, move on. They're either not the right person for organization or they're not in the right seat, which is okay too. And then you have to find a spot. Okay, you seem to thriving here, but not here in these tasks. How do we make sure that you're growing here, and we'll figure this position out here for somebody else?
Yeah. You know what? That reminds me of what you just said, though. Like, you know, the 4 quadrants where it's like urgent, important, and then important, not urgent. And when it's in chaotic mode, you're working in that urgent, important, and you want to move from that to go to the important, not urgent. Because then now you're properly working through your business. Like, okay, this is important, but it's not urgent, but I'm going to get there. Right.
I love that. And when the accident happened with my hand and I was taken out, it took me, I'd say, a year and a half to get fully like to where I wanted to be. And we were still doing operations in that time, but not scaling to the, now we were stabilizing. Now we were doing project management. Now we weren't doing as active acquisitions anymore, but we were doing the other work that happens after acquisitions and keeping like us still busy and working in different ways. And that's the time that I took to systemize and build a team and build the processes to like, okay, this is where everything is now. Thank you. I know when my mortgages are due. I know when insurances are renewing. I know when taxes are due. I know when I need to FIVEs out. I know when I need to communicate investors, everything. We went through every single step and build workflows around it. And timelines so that everything is still very important, but nothing is urgent because we're prepared and we have reminders and we know when things are coming up.
Yeah, no, it's listen, thank you for sharing all that. I think it's really important. I think that might help somebody who's looking to maybe hire their first admin. It's the scariest thing, but if you're close to it, it's also rewarding as well too. One last question here. Do you think anybody can just be a leader? Like you're an incredible leader. People look up to you. You've built some incredible businesses. Do you think you're born with it, or is it something that you can learn?
100% not born with it. No way. I was a really shy kid. And I think I'm a late bloomer. It took me a long time to find myself and find a voice and find a purpose, I would say. I think it's not about what you think others want to see. It's about being your genuine self, working on yourself, because my priority is working on who I am and being the best version of myself. That's the only time you can really lead anybody, is when you're your best version. If I'm always focused on what everybody else wants from me, especially I think for women, not that men don't go through that too, but being able to always thinking what others think and what others want. The moment I change that to, hey, let me like work on in here and figure things out in here and find a level of deep confidence and love for myself and respect for myself and genuine confidence in everything that I'm doing and in the things that I can accomplish and how I can help others is really when things started to change. And I started to feel that the influence that I was having, like not intentional on my end, but I just started to see the influence I was having on people.
So powerful. So well said. When you first walked through that door today, I can see the growth and the level of confidence that you have. When was the last time you were here? I don't know, a couple of years ago, but you can see it. So it's amazing seeing that, honestly. So thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your story and your journey. And it's been incredible watching you, from a distance and seeing what you've built and you're authentic. And so thank you for being you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to have you on mine.
Yes, that's in I think a few weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Anything else you would like to say before we wrap things up, and how can people get a hold of you as well too?
Yeah, reach out anytime. If you are looking to raise capital the right way and you like my help, feel free to reach out. If you're looking to be part of the Investors Club and invest with us, touch base as well. We have always opportunities brewing. Instagram, Facebook, Adriana.Ostapenko, as well as my YouTube channel, the Adriana Ostapenko podcast. And then, reach out anytime.
Awesome. Adriana, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Take care.